and Advantage General is
7:01 and 45 seconds. And we're now invited to listen to the Morning Watch with Reverend Dr. Toussaint. Again, I want to say thanks to the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, providing opportunity, stability, and social protection, and also the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs.
NIS pensioners, avoid the wait. Get your NIS pension straight to your bank account. It's easy. Simply visit the Ministry of Labor and Social Security's website, mlss.gov.jm, or the nearest NIS office and collect the direct deposit application form. Then complete the form and submit it along with supporting documents to the NIS office nearest you. Avoid crowds and long lines. Get your money when you want it. The National Insurance Scheme, always working for you.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org, and if you're overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541. Or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the first watch today, what's new with the amended Domestic Violence Act? And in the second watch, Ukraine-Russia war and its impact to date on the Caribbean region. For our social media question, we ask, what are your expectations with the amended Domestic Violence Act? We're asking you to share your responses on our Love 101 FM Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program, but before all of that, here's our quote.
Good morning. Today's I quote is from Robert Burton, and it says, "What cannot be cured must be endured."
Good morning, Jokal.
Good morning. How are you?
I am well. Anything that wasn't cured that needs to be endured?
Really good things.
Yes. This state of our world, you know.
Yeah, no.
It's really rough, but we give God thanks that with Christ in the vessel, we can smile at the storm. Yeah. The first watch will be back after this break.
On the next episode of the Mailbox, we look further on the topic, man number. Can be destructive. You are invited to join.
Here is your opportunity to connect with someone who will listen, pray, and give guidance. It's the Ministry of Counseling and Prayer of the Edgewater Baptist Church. Please call 876-220-6474 or 876-332-7956. Weekdays between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Please talk to someone if you're finding it particularly challenging to cope during this period of crisis. Someone is waiting for your call. Please reach out today. 876-220-6474 or 876-332-7956. It's the telephone counseling and prayer ministry of the Edgewater Baptist Church. A reminder that somebody cares. Endorsed by Love 101.
When I come to the end of myself, Father, carry me.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Now, what do you know about the Domestic Violence Act? Well, 2 days ago, the amended version of the Act came into effect. What does that mean for us as citizens of Jamaica? What are its possible implications and impact going forward? To answer these and other related questions, we have online Mrs. Sharon Coburn Robinson, Principal Director of Gender Affairs, the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sports. Good morning to you, Mrs. Coburn Robinson.
Good morning, Rev, and thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks for joining us. All the best for the new year.
Thank you.
Great. Now, let me begin by asking you, what constitutes domestic violence and why is it distinguished from other forms of violence?
So domestic violence, Rev, relates to any act of violence that is committed against a person, where the person is abused, violated, victimized. It could be in a relationship, whether marital relationship, common law. The person would be related by blood, marriage, or intimacy. It could be that the person doesn't live, the persons do not live together, but they have a common law relationship or visiting relationship. And the person there is one party who is inflicting danger, harm, damage in different forms. It could be psychological abuse, just saying things that are negative and causing the person to feel less than. It could be physical, hitting the person on parts of the body. And the person is not able to retaliate or is in a lower position, perhaps not as strong, weaker, or just in an inferior position, or there might be some benefit to it in terms of the person lives in that space that they don't have their own home, so they feel obliged to stay there. Every time something like that happens, whether it's physical, psychological, social, whatever form it takes, we encourage persons to move away from that, because we have this approach that says no person should be subject to domestic violence or any form of violence from any person at any point in the life cycle.
And does that include siblings?
Absolutely. There are times when it's familial, so you might have other persons in the family experiencing violence. So children can experience incest, meaning there is a blood relationship between this person, their father, their grandfather, their brother, and this person is having relationships, sexual relationships with them without their consent, and especially when it's an underage minor, that is a big issue. Sometimes it is another family member at the home, a relative or a sister, brother, and violence is happening inside of the home. So domestic not only happens in the home, it can also happen in the community, to extend to the community.
Are there not other laws which address violence as a whole? Why this particular focus and emphasis on the domestic aspect of it?
I think it's a level of vulnerability that happens for persons, and it can be male or female. It's gender neutral. It is that level of vulnerability that the person faces, because if you are in a situation, for example, in a home, and you are experiencing violence, then you might not have any support at all. You might have to deal with that on your own, in the sense that there is nobody there to protect you. Or you might have persons who can protect you, but they are afraid. There might be the fear factor. They might not want to retaliate, or they might not want to pick up for you or be an advocate for you because of fear of reprisal. If there are things that are attached, for example, they don't want to lose the benefits that are there. Sometimes there are benefits. And so they will perhaps not necessarily say anything. So the other piece is that if the person who is undergoing the harm is unable at that point to make an escape, to talk, to say to this person, this is wrong, to speak out, to stand against it, and to do something about it, then that means the person is in a position where they are unable to negotiate. And so they feel powerless and in some cases defenseless and alone. And that is why the legislation has been amended to ensure that persons who are in that extreme point of vulnerability and different points in their life they might experience that. Some person, it's a lifetime of abuse and they say nothing until something happens, like you hear that somebody kills the person or there is a murder-suicide where both parties die. We would rather not have to deal with that. We prefer to have persons understand that the first act of violence is one too many. So you need to speak out and seek help, and there is help.
Yes. Anecdotally speaking, how widespread, prevalent is domestic violence in Jamaica?
Extremely widespread, Rev. The statistics are alarming. And even though we have been working so closely with the police, as you know, we launched a continuum of care in 2022, and that continuum of care is designed to fold it, sort of like this nice blanket that covers all parties who need that kind of support. We saw 8,500 reports of domestic violence in 2023. Now that's really alarming, and that's the collated figure from all of the spaces that allow reports to come in. So the domestic violence intervention centers that the police have, and there are 10 of them in 8 parishes. Those would have given us data, the ones that come into us, because we have a unit that deals with just persons calling, and it's a gender-based violence helpline unit. And that allows through lines, we have 3 lines at this point, that allow persons to call in, male and female, and speak about what is happening so that they can support. We can support them through counseling, psychosocial counseling and support. They might need to go to a shelter. We do have a national shelter unit. So the cases we saw were higher than what should have been. We think even 1 case is too high, because that means a violation of personhood, property and possession. And it means you are taking the person's right as if you have that right to their personhood and that right to violate them. And no one has that right to violate anyone.
Yeah. I mean, it's out there that perhaps the pandemic intensified, or well, not the pandemic, but the situation surrounding it in the homes intensified the cases. Any truth to that?
Well, we saw statistics coming up that show that in cases where the perpetrator is in the home and you're in a lockdown situation, then naturally that would assume that you have less access to moving around and getting away from harm. We had cases where persons during COVID called us to say that the perpetrator is in the home, he's going nowhere or she's going nowhere, and they are afraid. And we had to assist them through getting the police and that support that we have under the continuum of care. So there are times when cases came in because of the lockdown situation and the fact that they were just in that space and the movement was restricted.
Okay.
So yes, it did increase the level of vulnerability for many persons.
Okay. We have more to talk about, Mrs. Robinson. We're up on a break. We'll be right back.
Time on Love 101 is now 7:15 a.m.
Looking to own a home and put down your roots? Join us at the Sagicor Bank Mortgage Boutique this Saturday, January 27th, Portmore Branch, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Apply for your mortgage on location and get a competitive mortgage rate. 0.25% off commitment fee, on-site pre-qualification, $20,000 gift voucher for appliances, a Sagicor Bank Star Savers account with $5,000 for your child. Plus, on mortgage approval, you could be one of 3 winners of a patio set, living room set, or inverter AC with free installation. The Sagicor Bank Mortgage Boutique this Saturday, Portmore Branch, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Conditions apply. Authorized under Section 58(3) of the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Act.
NIS pensioners, avoid the wait. Get your NIS pension straight to your bank account. It's easy. Simply visit the Ministry of Labor and Social Security's website, mlss.gov.jm, or the nearest NIS office and collect the direct deposit application form. Then complete the form and submit it along with supporting documents to the NIS office nearest you. Avoid crowds and long lines. Get your money when you want it. The National Insurance Scheme, always working for you.
The public sector touches the life of every single Jamaican. And that's why the government is transforming the way the public sector operates by making better use of technology to improve the delivery of public services, by improving the compensation of public sector workers to attract and retain the skills needed to run a modern and efficient public service, through training of workers to drive performance, innovation, and decision-making, by reducing waste and eliminating corruption, and other measures to make sure the country gets the best value from every dollar spent. The government of Jamaica is building a better public sector for all. Visit publicsectortransformation.gov.jm to learn more.
I've been hearing about this constitutional reform thing. You know anything about it?
Yes, constitutional reform is a chance for us to Jamaicanize the constitution.
But how?
Enough things changed since 1962 and we've matured as a nation. So modernizing the constitution will reflect our current societal values.
Oh, a constitution for Jamaicans, approved by Jamaicans.
Are you ready for the journey? Join us on the road to Republic. Think independence, think Republic. A message from the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and in this, the first watch, we have been discussing the whole matter of the amended Domestic Violence Act. And in so doing, we have online Mrs. Sharon Coburn Robinson. She's the Principal Director of Gender Affairs in the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sports. Welcome back, Mrs. Coburn Robinson.
Thank you, Red.
Great. So I think we have looked at the whole matter of what domestic violence is and how it has been impacting our society. Well, tell us about the Domestic Violence Act, in particular, the amended version.
Thank you, Rev. So for us, the largest piece of it that we are extremely happy about is that the Section 4 was amended so that the court can issue protection orders, and that will serve as a guardian for persons who have a range of harms that would be in their path, and perhaps that they are susceptible to. And it also increases the coverage around property damage. There are times when the damage is done to the property and this person who is the victim is unable to negotiate. Now, the exponential increase of the fines for breach of the protection order. The protection order is the biggest thing that we consider as a protection part for the victim, whether it's male or female. That protection order allows this victim to be able to take out an order from the court that says this person who is violating him or her should not come within X kilometers of him or her. Now, prior to now, the breach of the protection order was a mere 10,000 Jamaican dollars or 6 months in prison, up to. And with the increase of this protection, the fine, based on the fact that the amendment allowed for up to 1 million Jamaican dollars.
Wow.
And if the person is unable to pay that 1 million, then the person can face imprisonment up to 1 year, 12 months.
Wow.
In addition to that, what we did through the amendment is to expand the persons who can actually support this person who needs to take out a protection order. Because if it is breached, then you have to take a new one. Once it's breached, it is null and void, and you need to take a new one. Sometimes the person who needs to take the protection order out is so traumatized, so victimized, so feeling helpless and hopeless and afraid to go on the road, to go to the court to take it out, because they might be stalked, followed, watched, and so on. And so they don't want to avoid the risk of perhaps secondary victimization. They might not be willing to go forward. So the law expands the level and the categories of persons who can work with those persons as advocates, as we call them. Social worker, somebody who's a human service provider, a member of our team, the Gender-Based Violence Helpline Unit, persons at the Victim Services Division. We also have some insurance advocate if it's a child, the CPFSA, those officers, social welfare persons who work with victims and who work around showing of protection can actually assist that person to take out. And the Minister of Gender Affairs has now been given residual powers, so she can actually nominate somebody, select somebody, designate someone to say this person is in need of care and protection. Can you assist this person? Go with the person physically to assist them. If they lose a day, if they have to lose a day, then it means that somebody can stand in the gap for them. So it's this person who will just be there as a lot of like a blanket sort of for this person to actually walk them through it, because it's not an easy experience to be a victim.
Right. Yeah. You're still there, Mrs. Robinson?
Yes, I am. I am.
Good. Now, help us to understand the thinking, the thought process behind the protection order being expanded like this. You're talking about, you said, from $10,000 to $1 million. I don't know how many months was it before the amendment. 6 months.
It was 6 months.
So now 12 months.
Extended to at least a year, 12 months.
Yeah. What was the thought process behind? What was the thinking behind such an decisions?
So the thought process, and that was because there was a joint select committee. The first iteration of it was 2014. And then we had a hiatus kind of, and then the elections came, and we had another round of it, 2017, 2018. In 2018, the discussions ended and the report was produced. And it's based on that report in 2018 that we were able to pull out. There were several recommendations. Everybody on that joint committee, and I had the pleasure of supporting the minister at the joint select committee. So persons were of the view that the $10,000 was a joke. There's no way you can have that as a fine. It's not a deterrent. It doesn't bar anybody from committing that act, because $10,000, anybody can come up with that. And so the idea was to find a way of increasing the fine to at wherever the highest point that it could go at that point, so that there is a strong signal that is sent that there's a zero tolerance approach to any form of violence or to any person. And if you breach the protection order, which is designed to protect this person, then you will pay a fine. Now, we've seen where late last year, I saw the credial larceny, the legislation approved. And what I saw was 3 million, a threshold of 3 million and 3 years. Now the minister has appointed a new joint select, and we are of the opinion that when this joint select continues to interrogate the legislation and to look at the amendments and to look at the lots of recommendations that were put forward, plus new ones, which will come because time has elapsed, and there are other things that could be considered in this new dispensation. When that joint select committee ends their conversation and the discussion that's going to be robust, we expect that 1 million will go above. We expect it to even go beyond 3 million, because we think if you want to send a clear signal that this is wrong, you cannot breach a protection order, the fine should be so high that there is no way that persons can say, okay, so I can just pay this fine. I can just breach the order and pay this fine. It should be so high, it's a deterrent, a clear signal that this is absolutely wrong and it's not going to be tolerated.
Is there a clause in the Act now, even in its amended format, that deals with regular review, where the fine and the penalties are upgraded, updated going forward? Because the 10,000, I gather, was once considered a lot of money, right? And now we put it to $1 million.
Point, yes.
So the million will one day be considered not much money. Is there a clause that deals with regular update in that regard?
Certainly. So they have included a new subsection, Ref, and that new subsection will allow the minister who has carriage as Minister of Gender Affairs, Minister Olivia Bridge, to amend the monetary penalties as seen fit. So in the same way we got that threshold for the credial larceny legislation of 3 million. We believe that when the joint select has that discussion, we're going to push the envelope to get the highest possible threshold in terms of a high of X amount. So it might very well go beyond 3 million. Right. And we expect that the strident conversation that we're going to have will allow. So that new subsection is going to allow for that flexibility, that we can have the expansion of those penalties as required.
Is there a statute of limitation in regards to the Act?
I am not aware of that, Rev. If there is I'm not aware of that. I could research that and get back to you. I'm not aware.
Does that mean that if it is not there, someone could report 10 years from now, 20 years from now, or something that happened this year?
So in terms of the length of time that it is the person can report, I don't get the impression that there is a limit on the number of years that you can take to report it. I think
you know the danger with that, right? You know the danger with
that's
that.
not a part of the new amendment. We didn't put that in as a part of it. What will happen is that the conversations will continue under the new joint select to certainly see how far we can go, because the idea is that some persons cannot report it because they are still traumatized years later. So when we had those first discussions, the idea was not to cap it so that persons will say, okay, so because I could not report it 5 years ago, I am barred now from reporting it. So I believe when we have this new joint select, that's something they're going to be looking at as well, to make sure that it doesn't matter how long, that whatever the cap is, it is reasonable, so that persons will not face this kind of ridicule or rejection because they were unable to come forward 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
What are your words of advice to those who have been or are victims of domestic violence now?
Thank you, Rev. My word of advice is that no one has any right to violate any person at any point in their life. No one has that right. And no one has any obligation to sit or stand and take violence. No one. And so once a violent matter, once there's a violent occurrence of violence, even the thought, if you think the person is contemplating violence, speak out, seek help. There is help. You know, we have a helpline unit, as I mentioned, and we have some numbers in addition to the 8 centers that we have with the 8 parishes that have the DV helpline, that DV IVIC. We have numbers that persons can call in our helpline. And if you will allow me, I could give those numbers really fast.
Please go ahead, please.
For females, it's 876-553-0372. A second number for females, 876-236-1713. If you're a male, but you don't want to talk to a female, you can call this number, 876-553-0387. You can also send it on WhatsApp if you don't want to speak to somebody. You can send a text. You can walk into the Bureau of Gender Affairs. You can walk into any of the DVICs, the domestic violence eye care centers that are in parishes across 8 parishes, and report so that you can seek help. You can go to the church if there's a church near to you. You can speak to your neighbor, but for heaven's sake, do not sit with an act of violence, because sometimes it does not go away. And you might end up being a statistic, you don't make it out alive. So as soon as it happens the first time, or even there is a hint of it, or you suspect that it's going to happen, seek help immediately. We're here for you.
Yeah, just one final round. Could you repeat those numbers and the specific details?
Certainly. For females, 876-553-0372. Second number, 876-236-1713. And the number dedicated for males, 876-553-0387.
Okay. Thank you so very much, Mrs. Coburn Robinson, for giving us very important information and details in regards to the amended Domestic Violence Act. Have a safe day.
Thank you so much, Rev. It's very same to you.
Thank you. Listeners, the Morning Watch will return in just a moment.
Anything possible with a little savings in your hand.
The time by Jan Bank is
7:30 and a half. We want to thank our sponsors, the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, and also the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs.
They're full of life. You're full of love. They're carefree. You can more. That's why we created Child Protector, a critical illness insurance plan from Sagicor Life. It provides coverage for your child in the event of 15 critical illnesses, hospitalization benefits, life insurance, and investment benefits. So make sure your child can live life to the fullest. Apply for Sagicor Child Protector today. NIS pensioners. Avoid the wait. Get your NIS pension straight to your bank account. It's easy. Simply visit the Ministry of Labor and Social Security's website, mlss.gov.jm, or the nearest NIS office and collect the direct deposit application form. Then complete the form and submit it along with supporting documents to the NIS office nearest you. Avoid crowds and long lines. Get your money when you want it. The National Insurance Scheme, always working for you.
Arise, mighty warriors.
The Kingston Keswick Convention 2024, Sunday, January 21, and runs through Sunday, January 28 at the Boulevard Baptist Church, Washington Boulevard.
Engaging the community through effective ministry.
Each evening at 7 p.m. with dynamic speaker Dr. John Neufeld, National Bible Teacher at Back to the Bible Jamaica and Canada. The program will also be aired on Love FM, MTM TV, and Kingston Keswick YouTube channel. Lunch hour sessions are on each day at 12:15 p.m. to 1 p.m. Monday, January 22 to Friday, January 26 at Jamaica Theological Seminary, Webster Memorial, Mona Baptist, Waltham Park New Testament Church of God, Bethel Baptist, and East Queen Street Baptist. You won't want to miss the Youth Explosion on Friday, January 26 at 7 p.m. and on Saturday, January 27, 2024. Men's meeting at Guardian Group Seminar Room, Women's Gathering and Health Fair at the Boulevard Baptist, and Children's Program, Boulevard Baptist. Join us in person or online for Keswick 2024.
The Kingston Keswick Convention, live at 7:15 each evening, right here on the family station, Love 101. It's time to rise, mighty warriors, your strength lies in
Jamaica, let's spread the word around to let the world know that we are proud to be one republic. We are the right to republic. Well then, let's propel the nation moving forward in a new direction. True independence, that's the projection. No more dependency, it's the best plan. Yes, we know what's best for us, cause we want the country that's for us. So make we just pull together as the general public. While on the road to republic, let's spread the word around to let the world know that we are proud to be one republic. We are the road to republic. A message from the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. We are the road to republic.
From generation to generation, Jamaicans have depended on J&M Bank to make the pride and joy of providing a safe place for their families possible. Now, with no processing fees and no down payment mortgage options, you can open the door to your own sweet home, a legacy to hand to your next generation. Visit jmbank.com to get pre-approved today. J&M Bank will help you find a way.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Well, coming up next, we're going to read some of the feedback from our social media question. What are your expectations re the amended Domestic Violence Act? That's what we just discussed a while ago on the first watch. What are your expectations re the amended Domestic Violence Act? We're asking you to leave a comment on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. Soon come back.
On the next episode of the Mailbox, we look further on the topic, man number Part 2. Men have been socialized to stifle inside instead of feeling safe enough to share their authentic feelings. It appears the only emotion accepted from men by the society is anger, which, if not managed correctly, can be destructive. You are invited to join us as we delve into this issue with our esteemed guest, Mr. Kevin Wallen, on Wednesday, January 24th. On the family station, Love.
Another World of Worship Wednesday is coming your way inside Alive 1 to 5 January 24, packed with worship, fun, and information. Stick around for the brain testing exercise at 1:45. Prayer blasts will come your way at 2 o'clock. More prayer, more power. 2:15, we feature Jermaine Edwards as our worship artist of the day. At 3 p.m., we bring you Hot Topic. Join us to find out what's trending in your world of entertainment, sport, and lifestyle. You name it. All this and more will come your way inside Alive 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. This World of Worship Wednesday, January 24, with yours truly, Sarah and the Chirpy One on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now join Jokal for a look at how our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp friends answered today's question. What are your expectations with the amended Domestic Violence Act? Jokal.
All right, so we do have a response here on our WhatsApp line, and this is coming from Cherry in Spanish Town. Cherry says the law being amended going forward should and always benefit all parties involved. Any type of abuse is abuse and it's not acceptable. Domestic violence or domestic abuse of any kind is cruelty. One death is too many, the first abuse is too many, and one case is too many.
Yeah, mouthful there, Cherry. We appreciate the thoughts. Thank you, Jokal. Well, listeners, believe it or not, the Ukraine-Russia war is still on in earnest. There were many predictions and pronouncements of doom and problems, especially for the financial and business sectors. So how has it impacted Jamaica and the Caribbean? And how have we responded in return? Well, to answer these and other related matters, we have joining us Archbishop Kenneth Richards, Roman Catholic Archbishop of Kingston, and he's also a social and international affairs commentator. And we also have Mr. Dennis Chung, financial analyst and social commentator. Do we have both on?
Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chung. Great, good to have you both of us, and best wishes for the new year.
Yes, I think you credit.
Yes, the producer wrote that, and you are deserving of it, sir. Yes. Now, gentlemen, as far as you are aware, what were or are the underlying reasons for this war that we're talking about, the Ukraine-Russia war? Beginning with you, Archbishop Richards.
Well, we began, back in 2014, with the annexation of Crimea. And since then, it has evolved that the Russia wants to protect its border, and it thinks that the step by Ukraine to enter the European Union would expose and make their borders vulnerable. And so I think that in view of that, they have been trying to defend their border and prevent from entering the European Union.
Yes. Mr. Chung, your take on that? What's behind all of this?
Yeah, well, as Archbishop says,
Mr. Chung?
it's coming from.
Still with us?
Yeah. Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yes, go ahead.
As Archbishop says, it's coming from that time. Behind it, though, is much more than, for me, Russia and Ukraine and Russia trying to cede some of the territory. I think it is, in some way, is really the ideological war between the U.S. and Russia, because we have seen where other countries have made similar moves, and we have not had this sort of war back. by the U.S. One of the challenges that Russia faced also was when NATO got involved. So it's much more than just the Russia-Ukraine situation. It's really an ideological war that's happening. And similarly, if you see that the U.S. is taking a stance against China and that sort of thing. But I think it's more along that line that is prolonging it more than anything else. Because if it wasn't for the U.S. backing them, then this war would have been over a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ukraine would have been decimated, perhaps. Yes. So you are saying it's an ideological war, perhaps between Russia and US.
Yeah. I think that plays a major role in it.
Yeah. Okay. Gentlemen, what are your main concerns with the war so far? Archbishop first.
Well, I mean, we know that in the early days, the impact with respect to maritime trade, with respect to the free movement portrayed by the ship, especially the product between Ukraine and has been with respect to the impact that stood up and both European, Western nations and the Caribbean and Latin American area. So far, I think that we have survived with right practice at hand. So, other impact of this, over 10,000 lives that have been impacted to the war and 20,000 injuries. The continued destruction of properties on both sides. And then the same, and the with respect to coming to some resolution, even as the European Union has moved to the point of wanting to welcome Ukraine into the Union. There is a blockade by Hungary because of personal reasons. I mean, they want their money that they, I suppose, is grants or whatever it is that was supposed to be allocated. And so they have been holding back with respect to the agreement to welcome the European Ukraine into the European Union. And of course, there is the tension with respect to the fact that even as U.S. might have some interest, the U.S. Congress has been blocking the financial military aid that the Biden administration has promised. And so both the European Union and the U.S. not providing the financial backing, then there's a stalemate with respect to how Ukraine can truly defend itself. One commentator says that Europe's participation so far is just for us to, not so much to win, for Ukraine to win the war, but for us to kind of create them not to lose the war. So, I think that is a kind of stalemate that is going to prolong the confrontation that is taking place now.
Yes, it's not for them so much now to win the war, but not to lose the war.
Right, yeah.
Interesting. We're up on a break, gentlemen. After the break, we'll have Mr. Chong's response to that question. We'll be right back.
Get busy with a Biscard, Biscrew, Bisboost with a J&B Biz. Now you can't lose when you want to grow on your business too.
J&B Bank Small Business Loans.
Shop along for you.
Helping you succeed is our business. Tell us your business and let's help you start it, grow it, or boost it. Borrow as low as $10,000 and up to 100 million Jamaican dollars. Enjoy flexible payment terms and affordable rates. Apply now. WhatsApp 876-295-1298. J&B Bank. We'll help you find a way.
And make sure he has the energy and stay active every day. Give your family Zinc every day. It's fortified with zinc, vitamin B complex, and minerals, which increases immunity and keeps you revitalized. Zinc, the caretaker of the caregiver. NIS pensioners, avoid the wait. Get your NIS pension straight to your bank account. It's easy. Simply visit the Ministry of Labor and Social Security's website, mlss.gov.jm, or the nearest NIS office and collect the direct deposit application form. Then complete the form and submit it along with supporting documents to the NIS office nearest you. Avoid crowds and long lines. Get your money when you want it. The National Insurance Scheme, always working for you.
I've been hearing about this constitutional reform thing. You know anything about it?
Yes, constitutional reform is a chance for us to Jamaicanize the constitution.
But how?
Enough things changed since 1962, and we've matured as a nation. So modernizing the constitution will reflect our current societal values.
Oh, a constitution for Jamaicans, approved by Jamaicans.
Are you ready for the journey? Join us on the road to Republic. Think independence, think Republic. A message from the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and in this is the second watch. We've been having an interesting discussion, I believe, on the Ukraine-Russia war and its impact to date on the Caribbean region. In so doing, we have online Mr. Dennis Chung, who is a financial analyst, social commentator, and Archbishop Kenneth Richards, Roman Catholic Archbishop of Kingston, and also a social commentator. Before the break, I had asked the question, what are your main concerns with the Ukraine-Russia war so far? Mr. Dennis Chung, your take on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's an immediate concern about, the impact on the lives of the Ukrainians and Ukraine itself. Ukraine, is a major supplier of grain, and that could have an impact in the region, in terms of prices. But I think the world will adjust to that. But primarily the impact on the people there. I don't think that. I mean, initially when the war started, because of the change in the whole shipping routes and everything, and also the impact of oil and the grain, it had a much more significant impact. We're still seeing some impact from that in terms of inflation, but I think the market will adjust to that. The world will adjust to that, and after a while, it won't have such a great impact. So the greatest long-term impact is going to be the impact on the region and the people of Ukraine, because their lives have been upended and will be upended for a long time to come, and that is the primary concern for me right now.
You mentioned the people. What have you been hearing in terms of the impact on them? Because I can only imagine, the constant bombing and all of that, the lives lost, the infrastructure. What have you been hearing directly in that regard?
But that basically is it. I mean, I know one Jamaican, for example, that was well publicized. He was living in Ukraine and had to flee across the border. So what it does is that it causes the dislocation of families. I'm sure that many children there are going to be fatherless. So you're actually creating a society there of a lot of fatherless children. And think about the impact 10 years down the line. Now, the impact of that is that with all of these people migrating and everything, then it's going to put a strain on the surrounding countries. And also, the U.S. is going to have to absorb some of that. So that really is the main impact. I mean, the inflation, as I said, the world is going to adjust to that. It did have an initial impact, significant on Jamaica, for example. But since then, I mean, we've gone on to have some remarkable economic achievements. We've reduced the debt, we've managed to adjust to that, have a current account surplus. So long-term markets will always adjust, so I don't see that there's going to be such a great impact on the world going forward as the war continues. The biggest impact now in terms of a war is Israel and Hamas. that's going to have a bigger impact on the world than what's happening in Ukraine.
So in terms of Jamaica, our region, can you list some of the major areas of concerns in terms of the impact it has been having and may continue to have?
It's just inflation, primarily through shipping costs, that we've seen a great impact. I don't see that we've had a much greater impact than that. I mean, there was a prediction, as I had said before, that it could have had an impact on financial markets. That has not happened, and I don't think that will start now. And I think that as the war goes on, we'll be able to deal with the whole matter of shipping costs and all that. As I said, markets are just, so we won't have a great impact going forward.
Archbishop, your take on that? The impact directly for the Jamaica and the Caribbean. You want to highlight some areas?
Yeah, well, as I've mentioned, I mean, that the initial impact, that negative impact that it had on trade, especially with respect to shipping, and then also the rising costs with respect to the goods that were traded, primarily fertilizer, but also the impact that it had on ended the prices, gas and oil. I think, as Dennis mentioned, things have kind of leveled off and so adjusted. I mean, initially there was a concern with respect to whether the war would cause a slow, would cause a high inflation rate that would cause interest rate hikes that would increase poverty within the region. But, I mean, Jamaica in particular, I mean, the region, is basically being able to kind of balance things and is on a survival, well, not just, they're on a survival mode, it's gone with respect to regular operations and have adjusted to the new environment that exists because of the war. With respect to the impact that it is having in Ukraine and on both sides, Ukraine and Russia, I mean, there's concern with respect to the escalation in bombing that has taken place since January, affecting private citizens, and also the injuries from war, 20,000 people, many persons maimed, and there's concern about the psychological impact on all the persons who are exposed to this, especially those who are harmed. But in recent times, the women in Russia have been advocating for the return of their husbands, and it seems that there's an increasing in such advocacy that the Putin administration have to pay some attention to. Yes, also, in order to get more persons involved in the war from the Russian side, he has turned off, understand, heating in prisons just to get the men avail themselves to participate in the war on behalf of Russia.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Chung, I'm gathering from your comments and also, I guess, from Archbishop, that the world has learned how to adjust, to readjust, how to navigate the fact that this war is going on. Can you give us an idea how that readjustment was made over the months, especially in regards to shipping costs, fertilizers was mentioned, wheat cost and all that? How was that done globally?
Well, that's done by primarily, I mean, if you're going to have a shortage in one area, you'll find that production will ramp up in other regions, and certainly, business people will start to supply from other sources. If one source cuts off, the market will always fill a void, and that's what happened. And therefore, when you look at like how you ship and that sort of thing, you not only explore other options in terms of where you can get goods from, but also your shipping methods, you do that sort of thing. So you adjust as a business. You say to yourself, well, if oil is coming from Russia and it's costing X amount, and I can't get it anymore, I have to buy more, then you look at things like how you can cut down the energy costs. Can I source it somewhere else? Can I, for example, use more renewables? Those are real choices that people make, because at the end of the day, what people try to do is manage your business down. The other thing is that it's not that we've totally eliminated it, because you see that we still have inflation that's with us and has caused higher interest rates. But the truth is that markets do adjust to that, and people do adjust to that living, that standard of living, that condition of living, if you want to put it that way. And it's just a natural thing that people do, and then it becomes normalized, and we stop taking mortgages, for example. So it might affect housing, stop taking mortgages, you stop taking loans, you adjust in other ways, and that's just how the market operates. And then what you'll find is that once the market starts normalizing, and demand and supply changes for various products, and interest rates will start coming down again, even if the war continues. As I said, the bigger impact could be the Israel-Hamas war. If that extends, that one would have a much more major impact than the Ukraine war.
Why? Why is that?
Because of oil, because that's where most of the oil come from, right? So if
still there, Mr. Chung? Seem to have lost Mr. Chung. Archbishop, with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yes. Any comment on that? Sorry, Mr. Chung, are you back with us?
Yeah. I'm saying the cost of oil will go up because the supply will be affected. Yeah.
Yes. Archbishop, I think you will have the final word going forward, looking forward. What do you want to say on the whole matter? Where do you see this heading, both positively and negatively, if at all?
Well, one of the concerns is, the stalemate that exists with respect to what is taking place in the U.S. resistance by Congress to pass a bill for the financial assistance for arms that Ukraine is seeking. Mm-hmm. Also, this taking place in Ukraine and in Europe, with respect to the European Union. The concern may be that is this a kind of like a political game ploy being played with respect to not advancing the funds, because if the funds are advancing to Ukraine and they start to win the war, then Russia might see this as involvement of the European Union or the US, and then things might escalate to a third world war. And so I'm wondering if that is part of the psychology behind the reticence, to advance the financing that is necessary. Mm-hmm. So it's not just to keep Ukraine from losing the war, but to prevent for the advancement so that they can truly take the necessary steps to reclaim territory and start making advances with respect to winning the war. So there's a little tension there. It's kind of confusion. What is taking place, why it is that they're not advancing funds that have been allocated. Mm-hmm. And of course, Hungary is still a large part of it with respect to the European Union being able to make the contribution.
So it could escalate to World War III. Did I hear you correctly, sir?
Well, yeah, if potentially if Ukraine starts to win the war because of the external support from the US and Europe, the European nations, then Russia can interpret that as their indirect participation in the conflict.
Okay. We have to leave it there. I want to thank you both, gentlemen. Very interesting, very insightful, very informative. Have a safe and productive day, gentlemen.
Okay. All right, you too. Thank you.
Thank you, listeners, for being with us. Join us again tomorrow as we continue to set the stage for discussion of topical and controversial issues. For information, we'll get copies of this program. Call our production department at 876-968-959627. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and our guests. I'm Dylan Toussaint, and we're back to Love in the Morning with Jakal Dial.